Welcome to Moms with a Call. We're not here to preach, convert, or fix you. We're here to listen.
We're Mackenzie
And Rebecca, two women with messy stories, honest questions, and a quiet hope that maybe Jesus looks a lot more like love than we were ever shown. If you've ever wondered if there's a place for you in all of this, there is. Come, have a seat at the table. You're safe here. You're welcome here. Let's begin.
Okay, today we are diving into my testimony, and I have been so nervous to share this. I don't know, I've been trying to figure out why I've been so nervous because everybody who was close to me absolutely, well, maybe I take that back. Maybe not everybody knows everything. And so I think a part of me gets a little bit worried that there's maybe going to be some judgment. But I need to practice what I preach, right? Like, we're going to bring people on this podcast who are going to be so vulnerable, so open with us. And I need to be able to do the same. And so I am letting it all out there. This is a testimony that is going to go very in depth. It's not a surface level one. It's not one that is something that could be said in 20 minutes. This is most of my life story. And it's really how I got to where I am today. But before I share my story, I just want you guys to know this, that my testimony is going to touch on topics like emotional abuse, family betrayal, religious church hurt, postpartum depression, and suicidal thoughts. So if those areas are really, really rough or tender for you right now, please take care of yourself as you listen. I'm not saying that this isn't for you. This actually might be exactly what you need to feel seen or feel heard and know that you're not alone. But if you need to pause throughout this, step away, skip certain parts, please feel free to do that. My heart in sharing this is not to relive pain, but it's to show you that there's no place that's too dark or too broken or too messy for God to reach us. And I just pray that as you listen, you feel seen and known and reminded that healing is real, even if it takes longer than you think it's going to. All right, deep breath. Here is my story. So I grew up in a very religious family. My mom was incredibly religious. Probably one of my earliest memories I have of her is at my great grandmother's house, Banny, and they were reading the Bible. And this is something, and I'm sorry if you can hear thunder in the background. It is storming, of course, the second I try to film this. I'm like interesting, right? Like, why is there thunder and a storm going on right as I'm trying to film this? But, or at least record this. But anyway, one of my earliest memories is my mom with Banny. And we were just over there all the time, and she was constantly in prayer. And my mom is one of the most faithful people that I think I've ever met in my life, but she's also one of the most open people I've ever met in my life. And so I always grew up thinking that faith was something to be explored and looked at. And I never felt shame for having doubts or questions about God or our universe or our planet. And I'm so blessed to have had that in her. And so I always grew up questioning and knowing who God was, and he was in my story, but I felt like I didn't really know him. I knew of him. I knew that we were religious, right? And I knew that my mom was going to church and my dad was kind of along for the ride too. But she was always searching. She was always at, different churches with us or different places, just trying to find her home. And so looking back on it now, I realize even as a little girl, anxiety had really wrapped its hands around my heart. And, for those that know me, that I've really struggled with anxiety my entire life. From the second I feel like I was born until, honestly, college, I really struggled. I mean, it was debilitating. And even now, I still struggle with it. I am medicated. I'm on Zoloft, and I don't think there's anything wrong with being medicated for anxiety. I know that a lot of people that are very fundamental Christian, they tend to think that anxiety is straight from the devil. And while I don't think that God would ever give us anxiety, I don't think that all anxiety is from the devil. And so this is probably going to be a deep dive episode we do at some point. But growing up, I was so anxious. I was so scared of like so many different things. I I remember not being able to like ever have be out of my parents' sight or at a grown-up sight. And even if it was other grown-ups, I would be like, nope, no one's gonna watch me as good as my parents will. So, I don't want to be taken. And it wasn't a if I'm gonna get taken, it was a when I was gonna get taken. And so I had to be prepared for it. And so I think some of my mom's anxiety of being a first-time mom maybe rubbed off on me a little bit, but it wasn't too like she always thinks that she gave me anxiety. I don't think it was. I just think I was born with anxiety. And so, I mean, literally, I remember so vividly too being in the third grade and one of my best friends at the time. Oh no. Okay, yeah, the power just went out. You guys, I'm not even kidding. This is like the most wild thing. My lights are flickering. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm plugged into my computer, so I'm going to keep going. It is truly so wild that there's a storm right now and our power is out right as I'm recording this. And I do not think this is a coincidence. As you'll come to find, I am very spiritual. I am very in tune. And I think this is something that Rebecca and I are definitely going to talk about, but leading up into this episode, or just sorry, the dropping of this podcast, we were feeling so spiritually called to do this. And there have been so many roadblocks and so many truly, I feel, spiritual attacks. So the fact that I actually got this on like recorded is insane. And so I'm just going to say a quick prayer. Dear Lord, I ask that you cover our house in protection. I ask that I know that you love me and I know that you love this family and you love our entire podcast. Everybody who's listening right now, you have created them. And even if they don't know it yet, they have such a purpose in this world. And, I wasn't sure if this is what I was supposed to be doing. I didn't think this was my calling, but you have shown me time and time again that this is, and that there are people out here that need to hear you and get to know you and who you actually are. And so I pray that with this podcast and with this testimony, you allow me to show who you are and how you have worked through my entire life. And I pray that other people see how you're working in theirs. And so, Lord, I just ask that you cover us in the blood of Jesus. You protect us. You help our power come back on, and you help every single person listening to know that they're not alone and that they are so loved and they have a place, and that they are your children. They're your child. They're so much more than they even realize. And so I give it up to you, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay. So I am on my cellular, still don't have power, but I'm going to keep recording this. And, okay. So let's see. So I'm talking about anxiety. I was really scared of a lot of things. I was scared of dying. I think I was about to talk about in third grade when my best friend, her mom, ended up having a brain aneurysm. And she almost died. And it just absolutely terrified me. And then my neighbor had something really similar, and she was one of my grandmother's best friends, and she died. And this was not long after her husband died. And there was just so much death I felt surrounding me. And I was terrified as a kid. And I was terrified of death. I was also terrified of, I was your typical firstborn, right? So like I failure was my absolute worst fear. And to an extent, it still kind of is. But again, I think that's going to be another episode. And so I was just so scared of never being enough. And even though I had the best parents and they did everything they knew to do, and they were always there for me, I just felt alone in feeling this way. And so there was just so much striving in my childhood. Like I had to be the best at everything. I had to get the, straight A's. I had to absolutely bend over backwards and like be the best at whatever sport I was playing. And I remember I'm just not athletic. And so a couple of times, I would always try so hard with sports. And so I think soccer was one of the first ones I played, and I just wasn't good at it. And I would be so upset, especially even remember middle school playing it. I just sucked at it. And I would just beat myself up. And I felt like my inability to do everything well reflected on my worthiness. I felt like if I wasn't a good daughter, if I wasn't a good student, if I wasn't good at literally every single thing that I did, then I wasn't a good person. And I felt like I was constantly falling short. And I also felt like the Bible and the stories that I was learning about Christianity supported this, right? Through our works. And so yeah, we were saved because we said that we accepted Jesus into our life and all of that, but not really. There was this underlying message that we are sinners, we are not good enough, and we are never going to be enough. And we just need to do better and be better, constant striving. And so, I truly thought that I had to earn God's love. I just felt so lost. I remember I think it was going back to middle school. I think that's right around sixth grade is when my parents became Catholic, and they were searching and they felt like they finally, found a home. But I remember still like they were so excited that they found their home. But I was so confused and frustrated because I was still lost and confused. And so I think a lot of people in middle school and high school and even their 20s, like that is kind of the time that you are trying to find yourself and find your identity. And I don't even want to chalk that up to, a faith crisis. It was just like an identity crisis of, who am I? What do I want to be? Why am I here? And all these questions I just didn't have answers to. And so I actually of course, everybody in middle school and high school wants to kind of be in with the cool crowd, the cool kids, and, date. I was really, really wanting to date. And my parents were just so against it because they felt like I should wait until high school. And I was like, absolutely mortified. But now being a parent myself, and I understand that, I'm probably going to be like, so I was allowed to do group outings where it was not a one-on-one date. It was a literal group outing. So group dates. And I actually started dating a guy. I was in Catholic school. And what was so hard about this Catholic school is that all of these kids had been together since literally kindergarten. So there was years of history with all of these people. And I just remember I just wanted to be accepted, and I wanted to be pretty, and I wanted to be cool, and again, constant striving to be accepted. And so there was this guy, and he had history with everybody. He had been there since kindergarten. And I was like, okay, and he was funny, and he was cool. And so I was like, okay, that's what I want. Like, I want to date him. And I ended up actually dating him from the summer before freshman year of high school, literally all the way through college. Obviously, we were on and off. So we ended up dating, right? And when you're a kid, it's like the silly relationship. Like, I don't think we actually got that serious, that deep, right? I mean, I remember thinking back and being like, oh my gosh, yeah, this is like the love of my life. I'm obsessed with him when I was 12 and 13, right? Right when we started dating. But he was certainly lost too. He was also 13, right? He was trying to find himself. And so, I think that's why we got along so well, is because we were both in the exact same spot. We didn't really talk about it, but we were truly in the same phase of life all the way up through college. And so as I got older, we kind of grew together until we didn't. But I think I stayed with him for so long because I was just searching, right? Like I finally found something that made sense to me or gave me some sort of identity, right? And that striving that I had in my childhood went straight into my relationships, and it reflected how I saw myself. I saw myself as unworthy, disposable, not enough, right? And so in college, I don't want to put all the blame on him because like I said, I carried a lot of baggage into this, but I just fell into this relationship with this person. I stayed with him for so long because I didn't know who I was, right? This entire relationship was so destructive. It was manipulative, it was controlling. It was so isolating, and I was so far from God at this point. Those last 4 years or those 4 years of college, like my faith was just non existent. He was really struggling with identity and where he was. And I was not strong in what I even thought, much less, faith. I had none. And so I was going to mass, I was going to churches, and he was like, why are you going to this? Why are you going here? Like, you're an idiot for believing that God's real. And he would ask questions, and I truly couldn't answer them. Why was I going? Right? Like, I had no idea. Was there a God? Like, had he actually shown up in my life? I don't know. My relationship with God wasn't one that I created, it was one that my parents had created or at least shown to me, which is, again, very common. But there was no relationship with God between me and God. It was just what my parents had shown me. And they said, like, hey, you talk to God and you have a relationship with God. And like, that's just what parents do, right? Like they want their kids to have something to believe in. And, I I remember being in the car after my grandma had just gotten remarried or was about to get remarried. We were talking about her wedding. I can't remember exactly, but I remember being in the car and telling my mom that I was agnostic, and she literally just started sobbing. And so was that an appropriate response? I don't know, but I'm sure a lot of people could relate to that. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, you don't believe in God?" And I was like, "No, no, no. I know there's something out there. I just don't know what it is. I don't know who who they are, what they're about, what their purpose is here, what my purpose is here." And I was like, "Why are you so upset by that?" And I just like, I was so confused why she didn't understand. Like, I, it didn't mean I didn't believe in God. I just wasn't sure what I believe. And so I actually looked up the definition of agnostic. And so it's a person who believes that nothing is known or can be known of the existence or nature of God or anything beyond material phenomena. So a person who claims neither faith nor disbelief in God. And that is exactly where I was. You have to remember too, I'm in college, right? And so for those of you that don't know me or didn't look at my background, I am a science person. I've studied biology, got my bachelor's in zoology, and then I ended up going and getting my master's in biology and then another master's in science education. So I am a science girly, love it to a T. And science is so much about being able to measure, like you're researching what is measurable, right? Very few, I mean, sure, there's a lot of different stuff that you can't really measure, but the spirit world is something that is just not compatible with most science. You can't measure it. There's no, I mean, sure, you can try to quantify it, you can try to qualify it, but it's just not going to get you studies that other kinds of science would get you. And so I was really struggling, and it was not, I want to be clear, it was not the science and an indoctrination, I'm having air quotes, of academia that led me to this disbelief or this agnostic faith. It was not that at all. If anything, that science, the background, how our world is, how expansive it is, how an ecosystem works. I mean, truly, go look that up, you guys. Like, just like study a little bit about an ecosystem and how if you take out one thing, it can be absolutely detrimental to it. So, studying ecology, that actually changed my entire perspective on faith because I was like, something created this. Something, this is, there's something here. I don't know what it is. But where I struggled and where I really, really struggled is that I was feeling spirit, like spirit led, right? Like there's a God. I don't know if I agree with Christianity. And initially, when I wrote this, I was saying, in hindsight, agnostic did not explain who I was because I did believe in a God. But thinking back, I don't know. If I did, I couldn't prove it either way. And so I wasn't really sure. Maybe I was somewhere in between agnostic and then I definitely was never atheist. Which if you are, that's okay. That is okay. It is okay to have beliefs and change them or not change them. Like your path is your path. This is just mine. So I am not condoning anything. I am just telling you what my path was and what my walk looked like. And so at this time, I was like, okay, I believe in a God, but I didn't feel like mainstream Christianity was something that I believed in. And when I say mainstream Christianity, I mean the blending of political ideologies with religious teachings. And so I kind of refer to that in my brain as mainstream Christianity. And so my thought and my spirit did not align with a God that instructed people or supported people that hated other people, who judged other people, who condemned other people simply for things like the color of their skin, their sexual orientation. People literally just trying to live their life and figure things out. Like that to me did not align at all. And so I had some of my best friends were bi and gay. And so I was trying to figure out, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't go to a church that, it doesn't support these people. I don't understand how I could ever go to a church that I know would not accept some of the best people that I have ever met in my entire life. And so I'm struggling with this, right? And so I'm still kind of like wanting to go to church a little bit, and I'm going here and there. Obviously, when I'm home with my family, I'm going to mass. On holidays, I'm going to mass. And so I'm still trying to figure out, where am I? But internally, this is what I'm wrestling with. And so towards the end of my junior year, I ended up moving in with my boyfriend. And so we moved into an apartment or like a townhouse. And I remember my parents being so upset about it. They wanted us to get married. And I remember looking at them and I was like, you would rather me marry him and get a divorce than live with him before marriage? Like, we're already having sex. If that is the problem, I feel like you guys know this. I don't understand, where is this like a societal thing? Like and for me, again, you have to think like in my brain, I'm like, I'm not getting it. I'm not feeling like it just no answer made sense to me. And so, I move in with him and I want to say this is kind of sparks like probably one of the darkest periods. There's one other one that I'll briefly go over, but it's going to be a joint episode with my now husband, Evan. I move in with him, and little did I know that he was about to fall into one of the deepest depressions that I've ever seen. He, like I said, he was always kind of trying to find himself. I don't want to tell too much of his story, but he really struggled with his family. His mom was so sweet and so faithful. Her relationship with the Lord was so strong. And I remember envying that because I wanted that. And I wanted to be accepted by my partner at the time, my boyfriend at the time. And I was like, why do you accept your mom for believing in things, but you make fun of me for believing in it? And he's like, well, I just expect more out of you. Like, I don't expect much for her. And so I was like, oh, well, I don't really know how I feel about that. And so, their relationship, I could see her trying so hard to have a relationship with him, you know, but he was so closed off to his family. I mean, he was, even his friends, like he had a bunch of friends through a fraternity, but like they didn't know each other on a deep level. And to an extent, I think that's just a lot of the culture of men. They just don't go deep at all. And so, you know, I was a little bit confused for sure on how, because his mom was so faithful. I mean, his dad was also very devout as well. And so, I mean, he came from a very religious family. And so I was a little bit confused as to why he wasn't so religious. But again, I'd been with him for like years, I guess 6 years by the time we moved in together. And so I knew it. It was because he had basically had religion shoved down his throat his entire life. And like me, but on steroids, his relationship with God was not his own. He didn't know who he was. He didn't know who God was. He didn't know why he was here. He just was so lost. I remember at this time I'm working a ton and I felt like I had no time for him, which I'm sure kind of stung on his end. He had his friends, like I said, and so he was doing stuff, but he fell into this really deep depression where he would just sleep all day. He ended up dropping out of school, and I was struggling to support him. He started drinking a ton, lying a ton. He was drinking so much and smoking. And I remember feeling confused and alone with that. And I was like, how the heck am I supposed to support somebody? And if they don't, one, they don't even realize there's a problem because he didn't think there was a problem with any of it. But then two, how am I supposed to support somebody when I don't even know who I am? I have no idea what I want to do, where I want to go, what my purpose is here. And so, once I graduated, and this was in 2019, I went on to grad school. I think I was making I did get a full ride to grad school, which was pretty incredible. I had a teaching assistantship. So I had to work a crap ton and I did get paid a little bit, like I think $18,000 a year. So it was pretty broke. And my parents at the time were not paying for my living expenses. That, well, you know what? I take that back. They did give me some rent, not the full rent, but they did give me some rent. I just remember I had no money. I was so broke. I ended up having to take out, I think it was upwards of $12,000 in loans to pay my fees because even though I had a full ride for tuition, I still had over $1,000, $2,000 a semester in fees that were due. And then our rent. It also got to the point where his parents, I guess, were Venmoing him or something for rent, and I wasn't getting it. So there were at least 3 or 4 months, especially towards the end, that I was covering 100% of the rent. I was also covering most of our groceries, and it just really felt like we were just passing ships, right? Like, I mean, he was always there. He had like a game room that he was in, and I was not. I was just working. I was trying to, I buried myself in work to get over the fact that I hated my life. I hated everything about it. And I think he felt the same way. He hated his life. And so that horrible culmination of emotions it was not a good situation. And so I felt like we were roommates, but like really shitty roommates that actually hated each other. Sexually, we We really struggled. He was drinking a lot, and I never really felt safe in that relationship. I always felt ridiculed. I always felt objectified. I felt like I wasn't enough, like I didn't put out enough. And then when I did, it wasn't enough. And I remember just forcing myself to sit through it at the end. And I remember being like, gosh, like this doesn't make sense. Like, why would God do this to me? I cried every morning on my way to school. And what I realized is that I felt like if I fucked up the relationship, if I stopped with the relationship, if I said no, if I said how bad it was, if I told people how bad it was, that I would be a failure. And going back to what I said at the beginning, that was one of my worst fears, is failing. Like, why could I was so good at school. I was so good at research. I was so good at everything else. Why could I not be so good at this relationship? Why couldn't I fix it? And I was trying so hard. I was asking God, like, I know we're not, you know, doing the best right now, but like, talk to me, please. Like, is this what I should be doing? It was in such a toxic relationship. I was in debt and I needed out. And so I, like I said, I was crying constantly, talking to my mom, and she would pray with me. And I just felt silence from God on the other end. And I realize now, looking back, that I was just so blocked. I think I was trying to, what's that saying? When you try to like cram a square peg into a round hole. And he so clearly did not want this man for me. And my life's purpose was not to be with this person, but I was bound and determined to make it work. And so that's why so many things, I think, like, it just wasn't meant to be. And I kept forcing it. And so that's why nothing ever worked out. And that's why if I had just listened to the red flags, if I had just listened to, the breakups we had before, the conversations we had before, I wouldn't have been in that situation. But I also think there's something beautiful that God has done, or that did with that situation, is that he taught me so much about who I was in leaving this relationship. And so, there's one day I had come home and my dog Luke, he was acting like absolutely neurotic. He was already neurotic. And if you know Luke, he's pretty neurotic, but he was acting crazy hyper and panting. And so I was trying to figure out what had gone on. I went to the kitchen, and I think at this time I was on an elimination diet because I thought I had celiac disease. I had the gene for it. And so I was doing a bunch of different tests, ended up getting a biopsy, and I didn't have it, but I think I was eating 30 food items at this point. So I couldn't have like any sugar or anything sweet. So I had baker's chocolate in the house if I really just wanted some chocolate. And I had baked some like three ingredient cookies or something with it. And my partner, my boyfriend at the time, he was just in his game room the whole day, and he ended up not watching Luke and not taking him out. I mean, I literally at one point had to get a dog walker to take him out because he started like going to the bathroom in the house because he would forget to take him out. And so, but anyway, so I see him freaking out, like the dog, Luke's hyperactive. I go into the kitchen. He had eaten I think it was roughly 4 ounces of baker's chocolate. And so any of my vet tech friends, that baker's chocolate is the worst kind you can absolutely have. I mean, it's like 100% chocolate. But then on top of that, the amount he ate, and he was a skinny mini at this point. I think he weighed about 42 pounds. So having 4 ounces of chocolate, I mean, it absolutely could have killed him. And I remember fighting with my boyfriend, saying we needed to go to, state, which is the vet hospital. And he was like, no, we don't. You're overreacting. You're being ridiculous, whatever. And, you're fighting like always. And I went alone, and I took him alone, and I remember just sobbing when I got there. And sure enough, his heart rate was over 250 beats per minute. His blood pressure was through the roof. They had tried to give him charcoal and then make him, I guess, or they tried to make him vomit. He didn't vomit anything up. So they gave him charcoal to try to absorb it because it was already in his system. I had no idea when he had eaten it. Yeah, all they could do. So he was there for 2 days. He ended up having seizure after seizure. It was just horrible. And so I ended up coming home that night. So he had to be admitted and stay overnight. So I went back home to sleep. And I remember just being like, what is wrong with you? And he was like, what is wrong with you? And I was like, what? I mean, I felt like in the twilight zone. And he was like, I can't be with somebody who talks to me this way. And I was like, great, then we're done. I'm over. We're out. This is off. Like, I can't be with somebody who lives like this, who does this every day. Like, what are you doing with your life? You've dropped out of school. You're not working. I'm paying for everything. Our dog, you almost killed our dog. And he just freaked out and he left. And I just felt like that was 8 years down the drain. And that night, I remember praying. So I not only broke up with my boyfriend of 8 years, but my dog, Luke, was literally in the hospital seizing. And I didn't know like why, like what I did to deserve it. And I did not deserve this. Nobody deserves it. But I remember getting a call around 7 a.m. that Luke made it, and so I could come see him the next day. And he had maybe one or two more seizures after that, but they were able to stabilize him pretty well. Yeah, I ended up going back home and I stayed with my parents for a little bit after the breakup. And I remember I was like, God, I want to find who you are. Like, I want to know who you are. Like, you helped. I felt like he helped Luke pull Luke through this. And I was like, there has to be more for me than, and I know this seems so silly, like he's just a dog, but at this point in my life, like he really was everything to me. And so I set out on a path to find him, single, like, newly single, incredibly vulnerable. This was in January, I think, of 2020, to give you some perspective, maybe February, to give you some perspective. So I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. Alrighty, as we finish up part one and move into our midnight series where we are going to dive deeper into this and unpack it, Rebecca and I are going to discuss, go back and forth. She's going to ask me some questions about my testimony, and there will actually be 4 parts in my testimony. This is just the first part. So, this breakdown, so the rest will follow this format. So there'll be my pre-recorded testimony and then the breakdown from Rebecca and I at the end. And so my hope in all of this is to, again, not relive this pain that I went through or to glorify any of the things that I was doing that I thought maybe were right or that were along the right path, but to just show how I was. And not because, oh my gosh, all of these things were happening to me and I'm this perfect person over here, but because I think I was just so far out of alignment and so far off of my intended path and where I was supposed to be going in this world. And I don't ever want to shame anyone who also was off their path or who also was struggling with where they were at in the world. There is no place for shame here. And I'm excited to jump in to the deep dive and then move on to part 2. So thanks for being here, guys. Okay, so we just found out that I actually didn't connect the mics.
We didn't connect the mics. It was not your fault. It was a team effort.
Exactly. So if this episode sounds a little not great quality-wise, it's probably because that happened. And we're going to keep it in because we're a messy podcast and it's what we do.
We're a mess. We're a hot mess.
We're a hot mess, but the next ones will have our mics. So at least they're there for aesthetics.
How did it feel recording it?
Well, first of all, I think I said this multiple times in the recording, but also told you the power went out for the entire thing. Which is like 6 minutes in, like the power went out. And so I was like, this is crazy.
When everything still worked?
Well, everything was plugged into my computer. So
So as long as your computer didn't die, you were
I was
fine.
fine, and I had a fully charged computer somehow.
And it was audio, so you
Yeah,
didn't need.
I didn't need the lights or the
Yeah.
camera or anything, and so yeah,
Isn't that wild?
and you're just
In the dark.
I was in the dark, and then at one point I got a little scared. So
I
I
was confused. Are you
because I'm in the dark too. Like I would have had my phone up, put my phone light on, and I was just like, actually in it, I say a prayer. I'm like, Lord Jesus, please, like protect it. I'm obviously meant to say this at this time. So it was that threw me at first. I almost didn't record it. And I think it was just because I was like, you know what, I shouldn't do this. Like, and again, I don't think that I commanded the weather. No, but it just shows there's so many like blocks into telling my story. And it took me a while to even record it. And I think it was because I just I was in such a dark place. And I've really just opened everything up. And
It's hard to go back there and relive it.
yeah.
Because I feel like you get to a point where you're like, okay, I've gotten over the shame part of it, which is really hard to get through. And it's hard to revisit it. But at the same time, did it feel like freeing or healing?
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, once I finished it, I was just like
you release it. You release the trauma.
the trauma. Yeah. I actually, as I was speaking a lot of it out, I remember holding so much shame for like the way that I acted or the way that I did or not seeing things. And then as I'm talking it out, I'm like, wait, actually a lot of stuff happened to me, not because of me. And I don't know, that just shifted my perspective a lot. And not to say that I didn't do anything wrong. I absolutely did. I mean, there were plenty of wrong moves, wrong decisions on my part that, you know, maybe I didn't cover fully in depth, but you know, it was the way that I had perceived my entire story actually changed when I spoke it out loud.
I love that.
Yeah. Well,
Do you want to dive in?
yeah.
Okay.
Let's dive in.
So let's touch on the vivid dreams and the childhood anxiety. Like, what did that look like, feel like? So as a kid, I was very in tune spiritually, which I didn't know that at the time, but now I look back and and I think we thought that my parents and I thought we just thought like I was very empathetic. And I could pick up on things, and that's just what it was. And so even from the time when I was like a toddler, I could tell if people were dying, they were sick, if they were going through a really hard time in their life. Like, and when I say I could tell, I would like say things to my mom, you know, or I'd be like, oh, mommy, like, we need to pray for them. Or, oh, mommy, like, because I was really strong in my faith, because my mom was really strong in her faith as a kid. And so, or I would have dreams about people and be like, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with them. And then later find out, like, oh, they're sick. And so my vivid dreams, I would have really very, like, I could in detail, they were long. It wasn't like short dreams, very long and in detail of like spirits of bad things. Oh, so you were having like nightmares.
Yeah. Yeah. And I actually, one that I really remember as a kid, and I think people chalk this up to like, oh, it's just a kid having nightmares. And I really don't believe, I mean, some of it, yes.
Sure.
But I truly felt like I was attacked as a kid. And I'm still trying to figure out why. I don't know if I'll ever really figure out why, but the vivid dreams that I would have would be very, I'm trying to like give an example of one that maybe I could think. There's so many. Well, the one that comes to mind was like a very detailed, this wasn't like a nightmare necessarily, but it was like a very detailed quest that I would go, I know this sounds ridiculous, but it was a quest that I would go on with Jesus, and I would have the same dream like multiple times.
Is it like one of those dreams where you can't get to where you need to go? Yes. Those are so frustrating.
And I was like constantly on it. It was like I was writing candles with it was almost like the three things in the nativity story. And Jesus was like, had sent us on this mission.
Really?
And we had to find a lost, I don't know, something. And I just remember vividly having that dream so many times in a row. And I was like, and I was probably like 7, 8 at this point. And I was like, and so I was like, maybe the Lord is trying to speak to me through my dreams.
Yeah.
And I felt like a crazy person, to be totally honest. Even though my mom was like, yeah, maybe, honey, like he does that. Like, my mom was very spiritual. She was very, very in tune, but between those very vivid quest mission dreams that would repeat, that was just one of them. I had a series of them throughout my entire life. But then I would have nightmares of people in my life getting brutally murdered.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, as a child. Like, in detail, I could see them being murdered. And so I would wake up in a horrible fear, or I remember, and I had another one in my room, and I don't think this is actually a dream. So I think this is actually, I saw something.
Yeah.
But
you're a seer.
I am like, and I can see, I've always been able to kind of see things. And I don't ever like to say, oh, I'm not a medium. I don't talk to that. Like,
I don't think that's a raven.
no, no, not at all. Having a vision. No, I can't control it either. Like, it just kind of like, I'll flash, like,
Yeah.
this, like, and I don't know what they mean sometimes. Other times it'll be in dreams. And so as a kid, I remember I was in my room and my closet doors like flew open. And this thing came out of the doors, and it had a horse head on it. And I loved horses at the time. I was like horse girl growing up. Not a crazy horse girl, but just like I loved horses. Yeah. And so it had this horse head, and it was like moving towards me. And I was trying to scream, but I couldn't scream. And then it turned into a crazy, like, mad golfer. Wildest. But
I don't make those faces out of judgment.
No, it's so wild.
Like,
I know.
this is like
It's
I'm
wild.
curious.
Yeah, I didn't even put this in the testimony. I don't know why I didn't. So
because we're meant to talk about it in depth.
I guess, and it was just this mad golfer, and my grandpa, who was like one of my favorite people in the entire world at the time, he played golf all the time. And so I was terrified of golf. But anyway, so it came towards me, and I just remember like turning, I had a twin bed that was like against the wall, and I remember turning into the bed, like into the wall, and I was like, Jesus, please help me, please help me. And this like bright light came in.
Yeah.
And then everything was gone.
Wow.
And I don't know, I didn't turn around, so I didn't see anything. I didn't, like, and so I was terrified. And so I screamed for my parents. And I ended up running downstairs. And I don't think I ever slept in that room again. Like to this day, I won't sleep in it alone.
Yeah. Do you remember having any sort of sleep paralysis, like when this was happening? So I know I've heard about the sleep paralysis demons,
Yeah.
or whatever, or hallucinations, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to label them or call them.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you like can't move, you can't speak,
You
like
can't-
it's already terrifying.
All you can do is like say like in your brain, like, please Jesus help me.
And it's like you can't even hardly like move your attention away.
No. And so the fact that I could even go, like when I saw it and go like that I could move, like it was such a miracle, because there were other points in my life that I had it, maybe not completely to the extent of I was like fully, but like I couldn't leave the room.
Yeah.
I couldn't move.
Yes.
I could like maybe move. Like I was in like at least when he's had it, like he's like full blown, can't move
Like
anything,
stiff.
only can move his eyes. I'm like the couple of times that I've had it in my life, and it's only been as a child. I've never had it as an adult.
Okay, I was gonna ask. Do you say like prayers of protection for that? Like,
Yeah.
every night?
I feel even bad about praying. I feel like I fall asleep.
That's okay.
I try to, but in the morning I do pray too, or just throughout the day. I'll just be like, Lord, please just protect me and my family, and as I sleep, protect my dreams.
Yes. Yeah.
Because I feel like that is there's this whole spirit world that people just don't talk about. They just pretend it's not real. And I think
we're most vulnerable when we're sleeping.
when we're sleeping. And how much of your life are you sleeping?
A lot of it.
Yeah. So what? Like, why would there not? Obviously, we know there's something more, right? Like, there's something out there. There's a God. There's bad in this world. It doesn't come from God. It has to come from somewhere.
Right.
And so,
And it's probably way more intense than even our human brain
Can comprehend.
or like try to make sense of and envision like what it could potentially look like. It's gotta be.
But I would, one more thing on the dreams, then we can move on, because I feel like I could tell dreams for an entire episode, but we should actually. I had a dream. My mom was pregnant in college, and when I was in college. So like, we would have been like 21 years apart if she'd had a baby. And I was just and I have these a lot. Like, I'll have weird dreams and I'll have to talk to the person about it.
Yeah.
So I'll be like, Mom, you have to take pregnancy test. She's like, my tubes are tight. I'm not pregnant. And I was like, no, you really have to take pregnancy tests. And she's like, okay. And she took like 10. They were all positive.
Wait, when did this happen?
When I was in college.
When you were in college.
Mm-hmm.
Is that
And
Molly?
No.
Okay, I'm like, wait, I'm trying to do that. That's not right.
I think it was a chemical pregnancy. Well, she had her tubes tied. So it must have they think it was like an outside of the.
Like a calcified fetus?
No. No, I guess because her tubes are tied, the only way that she could like get pregnant is if it was outside of the fallopian tubes. That like
Ectopic.
That's yes. But
Yeah, I saw this lady who was like 73. She had a calcified fetus that had been there for like 30 years.
What?
Yeah. I don't know if that's like, honestly, I'm like, is it AI or like, no, she did. She did get a scan and like you can see it. And I'm like, anyways, that's what I was like.
Wait, that's insane. I'll have to ask her if she's ever gotten scans. But yeah, they think that she had like a chemical or like outside, or the chance maybe it did, like it wasn't fully cauterized or whatever. Like it could have gone through. They don't know. They didn't do like extensive testing. Isn't that wild though?
That's wild. Yeah, that's wild. I have heard stories about people getting I was not 100%, but at the same time, like, she was how old was she?
49.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's not like
47.
crazy or me like projecting.
No, but like she had her tubes tied for. How old was Bobby in 2015?
You know, like, was that
2016? No, he's 2005. So he was 10 or 11. Oh, wild.
Yeah.
So wild. So, sorry, I got off topic.
No, you're good. Well, maybe we should dive into, because you were raised in a Catholic church at some point.
Yeah, so I became Catholic. I think I was in 6th grade. So before we became Catholic, my parents were non-denominational, kind of bouncing from different. Well, we were at a non-denominational church for a while that they liked, but then there ended up being, I think, how leadership gets a little bit messy sometimes in churches, and some of the church doesn't agree, and so the pastor leaves, and then they leave with the pastor. I think that's something like that happened. And so they went to another pastor's church or something like that. And so then we didn't love that church. And so they kind of bounced around in different spots and tried Baptist churches. They tried, all different kinds, Methodist, other non-denominational, all kinds of churches. And so I never really had like a stable denomination until 6th grade. And that's when we became Catholic. And I remember being like not like on board, but I really didn't have another option. I was in 6th grade, so I never felt like not in.
Yes, and from non-denominational to Catholicism, that's like a huge step, a huge transition. Yeah.
Well, I always loved how like reverent and respectful they were. I thought it was really beautiful, even in as a 6th grader, right? And so I liked that, but I was definitely. I don't know. I just wasn't completely bought in to the faith. And so I think it's because when my parents joined, they went through RCIA. So which is how you join, like to become Catholic, you have to go through all these classes and then be initiated into the church. And by doing that, like they had to get baptized. Well, my dad and my brother and my sister had to get baptized, but my mom and I had already been baptized. So we didn't have to, and there's like a whole ceremony, and you take, your first communion and you become part of the church. And it felt a little too like sacramental, like the sacramental, like it was too like regimented for me. I think I've always kind of struggled with control and authority a little bit. And so it was hard for me to go into very rigid structured church life when I was still trying to figure out who I was. But I was like, you know what? And I said this in my testimony too. It's like, I didn't really know. I didn't really have a relationship with God. I did, but it wasn't really my own. It was one that like my parents kind of created for me. Yeah. That's what I hope to do. But maybe not to that like extent. I hope that Noah also develops her own relationship with him. But I think that's very common to try to have your, if your kids
like grow up in the church is what they call it.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. I wasn't about it. Like that was kind of the message I had. I started school there at the same Catholic church. So I started mid-year, which is really hard. And also, I've talked about this too, but a lot of kids in Catholic school, they've been together since they were in kindergarten. Yeah. And so it was really hard kind of breaking into those pockets. And something I didn't touch on in my testimony was I was bullied really bad in 6th and 7th grade. And so I guess because I was new and they just, I don't know, like I feel like at school I was always like cool enough, but not like super cool, but not weird. And so, especially in middle school, I just wanted so badly to fit in that I would like pretty much do whatever I needed to do to fit in. I'd have friends. Yeah, and I would have friends, but they weren't good friends. Like they, so I ended up being bullied really badly by some girls in 6th grade, and I ended up leaving that Catholic church.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so we actually left the whole church, like that church, because of the bullying. Wow.
It
wasn't a recurring problem. It wasn't just me, there were other people. It was a whole thing. And so we went to another Catholic school, which is where I tell most of the story of like where I met my ex, my partner of that really long time. We met in like 8th grade. And so that school was fine. But again, it was just like, there was some like drama there. Nothing as bad as the school before. But, like middle school is just kind of a hard time.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like not fun. I feel like I blocked a lot of it out.
Yeah.
To be totally honest. Yes. It's so hard. Yeah. And yeah, I think that was like a really big theme of my childhood of like striving, trying to be the best at this, trying to fit in here, trying to be popular, trying to do this. Yeah. And it's exhausting.
Yes. And it carries like, people are like, oh, you won't think about this in a couple of years when you're older.
No, I'm still talking about it right now.
It carries over into people's lives. Like it's a really big deal. And I think it's probably something like we could look at on a bigger scale of providing resources for these children at these ages. It's just such a weird age.
Yeah,
and
it is.
A lot of things are happening to kids mentally and physically at that age. And just, I don't know, like hearing you say this, it's serving as a reminder for like my children where I'm like, okay, we need to implement how to be good friends and welcoming and what a good friend looks like to you. Even for them to spot out, what good friends look like and how they make you feel. And I have a friend who actually brought that up to me the other day. And I was like, oh yeah, that is really like a really sweet intention. But now that you're saying it, I'm like, we really should be implementing these things in our kids' young.
When I was even thinking about that with Noah, and she's only 2, almost 3, but like I want to make sure, not only does she be on the lookout, need to be on the lookout for. I honestly don't want to project, right? So like I try not to project my own experience on to her, but there is a part of me that's like, when kids they try to take toys from her, and she's like, mine. I'm like, stand your ground, sis. And I'm like, we also need to share.
People sharing is hard. Yeah, they like just can't even grasp that.
Yeah, she's so little.
Concept. It's so. I mean, even like kindergarten
to share.
Yes, yes, it is tough. But I think knowing how good friends make you feel, and then knowing how to be a good friend,
it's so important. And I don't think I was ever really taught that.
I don't think we were either. I remember hearing like mantras like, "Do unto others as you would to yourself."
Yeah.
And you're like sitting in class and you're like, "Huh, what?" And you're like, sex education, and you're like, already feel uncomfortable, right?
I never had like a full sex ed.
You did it in middle school?
Well, I was in Catholic school, so we had like kind of sexual education, but it was all through a religious lens. And so it was like, I never got like the baby, never had any of that. Never ever talked about STDs, but for sure.
Really?
Or like condoms or any of that. No, we just talked about it's anatomical sex.
Yes.
And like, what parts go together.
Yeah.
And the men and the girls work together for it, and the boys work together for it.
That's how it was in middle school.
Okay.
I feel like it was, I can't even say because I can't remember, but I don't dislike how you were taught it.
Our periods, though.
I don't remember learning much about my period. I remember learning about like, this is what happened. It's like the Mean Girls. You will have sex and you will die.
You will get pregnant and die.
Yes, yes. That's the quote. You will get pregnant and die. And I'm like,
yeah.
Why?
No, I didn't even really know. The only reason I knew what a condom was is because my friends in 8th grade like had them. Yeah.
You didn't watch them like the awkward teacher like
Oh, that was not in Catholic school. No, not a chance. No.
But that's funny because the kids were still having sex.
But you want to know what's so
yeah.
You want to know what's so weird is that the teacher, now that I think about this, our religion teacher was a male, and he taught us
About periods?
Yes.
Sir, someone else for this job.
I think. Am I remembering that right? And then I'm almost positive he was the one that taught it, though, because he's our religion teacher, and our religion teacher was the one that taught it. Which is so strange. Right?
Yeah, that's bizarre.
I don't know. Really weird. So that was that. But I will say, my Catholic friends, I ended up going to a public high school. And my Catholic friends all went to the Catholic high school. And my parents were like, do you want to go there? And I was like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm really good. Like, send me to public school. It'll be great. Those Catholic friends were wild.
Like rebellious?
What? Yes. I mean, there was like this one house that everybody hung out at. The parents were super sweet, but they were just like not there. They were like checked out or something. Or maybe they just didn't care. But we would all drink. Well, I wouldn't drink because I was like terrified. As like I was like such a goody two shoes.
So you were drinking in middle school?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to remember if I remember.
Oh yeah,
I'm sure.
I feel like it wasn't quite as much as like when we got to high school because I was still friends with them, kind of, but we fizzled out. Gosh, but then I was only with them for a year, 8th grade, and then I went to high school, public school. Yeah, so I ended up meeting my partner at the time. That was
8th grade.
In 8th grade, and I feel like I say partner a lot, not because I don't think he was my boyfriend, but like we lived together.
Yeah.
So I really feel like we were more than just boyfriend and girlfriend. Yeah, I mean, we were together for on and off, but for 8 years.
Okay. So now we're in high school, kind of going through high school, moving into college. What was your faith like? Were you still a part of the Catholic Church?
I mean, by definition, like, or by like the paperwork, yes, I was still part of it. I was still going with my parents, but I wasn't like really. I didn't have a relationship with God yet. And so when I went into college and I was dating this guy, that I was dating through high school, he just wasn't very, and I talked about this, but he wasn't very strong in his faith, like when we were younger.
And he was Catholic too.
Yes.
Okay.
He was Catholic. He was like an altar boy. He like served in the church.
Okay.
His dad was like a knight of, not Malta, but like Knight of Columbus or something, which is like a very like high honor.
Okay.
Very involved in the church. And his mom was like so devout. She would go to church all the time. And he came from such a religious family, which I think is not uncommon. I think I mentioned that too. Like, I don't think that's uncommon to come, like, should almost go the opposite way.
Sure.
When you're growing up very, very religious. And so I ended up kind of exploring. I think I remember going to mass a couple times in college. Actually, a lot my freshman year. I would go to mass on Sundays or sometimes Saturday nights before I would go out with friends. But then I realized, like, why? I think he asked me, like, why are you doing that? And I was like, because you're supposed to. Like, what do you mean? And he's like, why? And he wasn't doing that. No, it was just me. I would go alone.
Okay.
And so, yeah, he would ask why I was going. No, he would never go with me. Not a chance. And so he was like, he would kind of make fun of not just me, but anyone who really believed in anything, because he was like, that's so stupid that people believe this. But like, he wouldn't say his parents were, I guess he wouldn't say his parents were stupid. It was more like, he just couldn't believe that anyone would believe in such a non-logical.
Is it Christianity as a whole or just Catholicism?
Christianity as a whole.
Okay.
Like, he would say things, I don't know if he actually used the phrase like sky daddy. That was kind of the vibe I got from him. He just was not into it, and he thought it was stupid. He didn't believe in a God, which is fine. If that he was like very clearly atheist.
Really?
Yes. Which is, again, if that's what you believe, like, I don't believe that, but if that's what you believe, okay, great.
That's your path.
That's your path.
It's almost like,
but don't shame me for mine.
And I think the shame and the name calling
Yeah.
is just like a really twisted way of him getting validation for what he believes in. And it's like,
I think he was trying to justify his own beliefs
by putting yours down.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Which is like,
Because I think me going to church was threatening his belief system that there was nothing there.
but if he truly believes in it, nothing should threaten it.
Right? Exactly. So, but again, I'm 18, 19.
Right.
Like,
Right. Of course, you're not like
I'm not
going that deep.
Yeah,
into it.
exactly. And I'm like, oh, here's the point. Why am I going? But he kind of did. I mean, why was I going? I couldn't answer that. I didn't know. Yeah. I was going because I thought I should go. And I thought that's what, like, good Christians do. And so I was like, you know what? I need to take a step back. And so I just took a step back. And I talked a lot about, like, becoming agnostic, or, like, the moment that I told my mom I was agnostic.
Yes.
And I didn't mean it as some, like, horrible thing of, like, oh, I'm in, the way she reacted, you would have thought I told her I worship Satan or something. Truly.
But it's really like you're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And my mom was always such a safe place for me to, like, talk things through. So then I didn't even think twice about being like, oh, well, I'm agnostic, I think. And to have a reaction, I was like, oh gosh, oh my goodness. Like, I was kind of taken aback by that. And I didn't mean it. Like, I didn't think there was nothing. Also at this time, and I talk about this, my testimony is like, I'm a science major. And so I'm really focusing on things you can measure, right? And so you can't really measure or quantify or even really qualify. You can qualify faith and religion and your spirit, but, like, that qualification, it's going to look different for every person depending on who is measuring it, right? And so science is what we can see in this natural world and what we can explain in the natural world. Anything that's supernatural or beyond our natural world, science doesn't really apply to. We know it's there, but we can't really measure it. And
I feel like it always works its way up to a certain point, and it never like
go beyond that.
Right.
Yeah. And so I was kind of like, oh, well, maybe there isn't anything there that I could. But then I was like,
how does that make you feel though? Because like that to me, not to like
pretend,
right?
No, it's okay.
Is such a bummer.
Well, I just didn't believe it because I was like, I've seen too much shit.
Yeah.
Either I am absolutely crazy town, which I don't think I am.
No.
I might be a little.
We're all a little.
Right. I was like, either I am like mentally insane or there is something else. And I think I suppressed a lot of what I saw in childhood down. But I couldn't just forget it. So I always knew. I don't know. Like, I always knew I just didn't know. I also started going back and forth of like, well, there's so many different religions. Why is Christianity the one that's like for sure the right one? So then I was like, maybe I should explore this. But I never did. At least in college, I was never like, let me really explore all these religions. I thought about it,
and I think that's like a healthy thing to go through. You think about other religions, and they all are very similar.
I do truly think most of them we are worshiping the same God.
You do?
I do.
Well, we'll dive into that because I feel like in the Bible, God does say there are other gods.
Mm-hmm.
But
he says like not to worship gods besides him, right?
Right. Yeah. Right. He does acknowledge that there are other gods.
Yeah.
Apart from him.
Maybe let me be clear. I think monotheistic religions, I think we're all worshiping the same God.
Okay.
It's like one deity.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I think monotheistic is the right word. I don't know. For sure. Don't come at me if you're a theology major.
We can always found practice and learn and grow.
I know, exactly.
And learn new things. But
I think that's my thought. We'll have to do another dive into that because I think, so then I started, and then too, at this time I'm in college. I've never been exposed to this many people, right? So I come from I'm from, right outside of Greensboro. Greensboro, North Carolina is large, but Summerfield, where I was from, was very tiny. And so it's also very white, very straight, and very conservative. And so going to college, I was like culture shocked. Yeah. Because I was like, whoa, oh my gosh, there's so many people. Like, I don't even think I'd ever really met, I know it's going to sound ridiculous, but I don't think I'd ever met like Indian people.
Really?
And so one of my friends in college was Indian. And I just thought it was so, we talked together. And so
there was like no diversity for you growing up?
No, not. Like even school, I guess the only diversity in school was like there were a few Black kids in school. Mm-hmm. But again, it was Summerfield. Like there just were. I mean, maybe there were a few. But again, it was very white.
Yeah, predominantly
straight.
White. Mm-hmm.
And again, like I had just never been exposed to it. The church we were at was very white and straight in Catholicism. There really is no other way other than being heterosexual. So there was obviously no, different sexuality in that church. And I always struggled with that because my uncle, who I loved so much, my great uncle, he's gay. And my mom like always loved him so much. He's still with us.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he might actually listen to this. We'll see if he's listening. But he is just so wonderful. And so he's gay. And my mom always really struggled with like people not accepting that for him.
Yeah,
and so then when she became Catholic, that was like one of the first things I had asked is like, how do you reconcile your, this relationship and like believing like this is okay for them to say, oh, he's not accepted. He's not accepted. Yeah. He can't come into the church. He could never become a part of the church. He could never take communion at the church, and she's like, well, I don't believe with, like, I think, faith and religion are different. And I agree. She's like, religion, you're not always going to align 100% with everything. And I don't know. I just didn't like that answer.
Well, it's just, it doesn't really answer.
It doesn't answer it.
Right.
And so, in
it
college.
But it doesn't, especially for a curious child.
Yeah.
It doesn't really like you're not getting what you asked for.
Yeah.
But
No,
she
exactly.
gave what she had.
But yeah, like in college, so I had I started to diversify my friend group, and I was friends with, people from different backgrounds, like socioeconomic backgrounds, and, people that came from absolutely nothing and were working their way through school. I had people who, were gay. I had one of my best friends was bisexual, and they're amazing people. And I really struggled with, and this is another thing I had like my boyfriend, partner in my ear being like, well, this religion doesn't accept them. Like, you're terrible if you believe this. Like, they hate people. They hate, like, Christians hate people. Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like,
It's not true.
no, it's now knowing what I know now, it's so far from the truth. But so I kind of came to that conclusion of like, okay, I think I'm agnostic. And, a big thing was like, if I can't go to a church that accepts my friends for who they are, if I wouldn't bring my friends to this church, why would I like bring my family? Like, if I have kids, am I going to bring my kids to this church too? Who like, they just don't love everybody? I just really had a hard time reconciling it. And I really struggled. And at that time, my faith wasn't strong. I was really focused on religion. Like my entire faith, my entire relationship with God was my religion. So it was going to church, was reading scripture at church, not on my own, was singing worship at church, not on my own. Like I wasn't, and I would say some prayers, but I never really heard anything.
It was like structured prayers.
Yeah.
From church.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Very structured prayer. And I would just say it. And then if I would get scared, sometimes I would say it. Sometimes it would bring me comfort. But I never like felt a relationship fully with God. Nothing like I have now. Where like, so for me, it wasn't that crazy of a jump to be like, oh, well, maybe I am agnostic.
You're in a toxic relationship. Like, well, what's your headspace like?
I think I was just so in the mindset of like heads down working, like to get through school I just did so many different things to stay busy. And I mean, I've always kind of been a go person. I don't like to sit. I don't like to not do things. And so I just dove even deeper into my school and my work. And so I was working full time at a vet clinic, or like maybe it depended on, sometimes during the summer I'd work full time, but then other times I'd be part-time plus being in school. I was a teaching assistant. So I just did a lot of different things. And so then when I went to grad school, I was in grad school, but then I also taught. And I go over this kind of in depth, but I just struggled. I was mentally just barely making it like day to day. I was like, surely there's more than what this says. Like, I was so unhappy. I had started seeing a therapist at this point, and what we worked on a lot was like I felt like my worth was wrapped up in the success of that relationship. Because I felt like if I let go and I couldn't make this work, everything else in my life I have been able to make work. And if I couldn't make this work, I was a failure. And I could not fail. That was my worst fear.
Even if it was like you spent the rest of your life being
Miserable. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's probably so common. And then I think as like the years go by, it's like, well, I've put in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years. Yeah. Like, why I'm just supposed to accept that that's just washed down the drain. But what would be a mentality that you would tell someone walking through that right now? Like, how would you rewrite that narrative for them?
I think I would say, I don't know if you've looked up sunk cost fallacy.
I haven't.
Okay. So it's essentially a thing of business, but it's like when people invest so much money and time into something, they just like have to make it work, and they will do anything possible to, and I'm probably butchering the exact definition of this, but it's like, it's a fallacy. It's fake. Like, you just because you put so much time and money into it does not mean, like, you might actually end up spending more money if you continue continue to
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And it's the same thing with relationship. Sometimes it's just a sunk cost. Like it's on.
Yeah.
It's too far gone. There's too much damage there, or there's too much difference. There's too much misalignment. And I think he knew it. I think I knew it well before. And we just held on. I don't know why.
It's like a comfort, maybe?
Yeah, and
Even though you weren't comfortable, but
I wasn't, but it was like the devil I knew versus the devil I didn't, right?
Yeah.
And so it was habit.
Yeah.
Not to say he wasn't like a devil. I don't want to be like, you devil I knew, but
No, I understand.
you know what I mean? I think that's the other thing is like, I knew who he was before he got into this really horrible, dark, deep depression spiral. And he's great before that. I mean, he struggled, obviously, like anybody else, but he had a good heart. And like, I knew who he was. And so I kept thinking like, oh, it'll come back because this is the phase. And then, well, I've invested too much into this. I can't fail. And then after everything, I got to the point where I was literally crying every single day on the way to school. My mom would be like, honey, like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I don't know. I'm so unhappy. I'm so unhappy. I hate my life. I don't know what I want to do. I'm miserable. And so, yeah, when the last straw was kind of when Luke ate that chocolate. Yeah. And he was like so apathetic about it. Like, just, he's fine. And what's wrong with you? He's fine. I'm like, no, he's literally dying. Like, I didn't even come to the hospital.
Yeah.
And then obviously
Luke.
Yeah, Luke. Yeah.
Oh, I know. I don't know why I was thinking like
Another dog.
funny.
Luke. I know.
He's a sweet boy.
He is. And yeah, he, thank goodness, survived it. But he ate over 4 ounces of Baker's chocolate, which is almost 100%, if not 100% chocolate.
Yeah.
It was like, and he only weighed he was teeny tiny. He had like the craziest metabolism until he was 6. Mm-hmm. So he was a teeny tiny boy. He only was like 42 pounds, something crazy like that. And I came back. I remember coming back and being like, what's wrong with you? And I told this in the testimony, but we ended up breaking up, and it was like, what is life? Like, my dog, and I said this in the testimony, but like I spoke with my boyfriend in 8 years. My dog was like on death's door in the ER. I have no money. I broke because I was in grad school. I'd been like, my parents were helping me like with a little bit of rent, but not the full amount. So, and then I was only making $18,000 a year. 4 of that went towards fees. 2 to 4 of it, I can't remember, went towards fees. Then also I had taxes taken out. Mm-hmm. So I was making like no fee. Yeah. He ended up at one point not paying the rent because he dropped out of school. So I was in so much debt. And then my daughter, I remember calling my dad and being like, Dad, oh my gosh, like Luke's lost. I need to borrow $7,000. And he was like, what? I was like so late. I couldn't even talk. I couldn't even talk. He thought I was like in a car wreck or something. At first, he's like, are you okay? And I was like, I'm okay. I just need to pre-authorize $7,000 on your card. I'll pay you back. And he was like, okay. Okay. Can you talk to your mom? Yeah. And I was like, yeah. And so I was talking to my mom.
That's so sweet. And then my mom would be like, are you sure the dog's worth $7,000?
It did not end up being 7,000. It was only like 3,500 or something. It was a lot, but in my mind, I thought it was gonna be 7,000. Yeah. So I actually think I ended up opening a care credit card, and I put it on that, and I paid it off. I don't think they ended up, but I just had to. But in that moment, I had to pre-authorize. My limit on my card is really $800. Yeah. I had a secured credit card. Like, I had no money. Yeah, there's no way a 7,000 pre-authorization would even hold. Like,
you're like, and he's not gonna be treated. Oh,
yeah, and he had insane blood pressure. His heart rate was like 200 and something. Yeah, he was so sick.
Poor girl.
Oh, wow. He was there for 2 days. A little wild. And then I had to take him out every 2 hours for the next week because I guess he had so much, whatever the main active ingredient is in chocolate, they're allergic or that's bad for them. It would reabsorb back into if his bladder was full, it would reabsorb back into his bloodstream.
Get out the toxins.
Wow. So I had to wake up around the clock that entire week and let him out every 3 hours, 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Wild time.
That is wild.
Yeah. So, but you know what? I learned a lot.
Yeah. So this is kind of ramming up the first part of your testimony. We'll move to the second part where you kind of COVID happened.
Yes.
And Evan. Yes. So we'll wrap this
Perfect.
first episode up
Yeah.
and move on to the next one.
That sounds perfect.
Okay. Cheers our Diet Cokes.
I know I need a refill.
Thanks for being here with us today. If something resonated, maybe a sentence, a silence, or a story, hold on to that. If you felt seen or stirred or simply curious, we hope you'll join us again. Until then, stay open, stay tender, and remember, there's always a seat for you at the table.